What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down why next week is going to be very important as we have NIO's earnings, not to mention big deliveries numbers, which could cause a lot of volatility for NIO stock. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvda stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of the stock. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth, and deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvda. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon in just 2 days. So check out my link down below to get those free Nvda shares. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening to NIO. We're only down 2%, which is nothing compared to the 10% swings we've been seeing. And if anything, NIO is very simple. We're just going back and forth, getting really, really tight. We have deliveries numbers coming out. I think this is going to either cause the share price to break to the upwards direction towards 7, or we get a big dump and we come back down to fill this gap around the 5.5 area. So we're going to see which way we break depending on our numbers. NIO has been talking about their ET9, which is known for being very, very luxurious and very, very competitive with the different brands. I think that's very, very awesome. However, I want to make it very clear that this is going to be another catalyst for the longer term. And another big catalyst is going to be deliveries. NIO is going to be announcing their August deliveries numbers in about a couple of days from now. Possibly on September 1st, it's going to likely come out, or even earlier because it's going to be later in China, right? The time in China is ahead of the US. So they might be releasing deliveries very soon, and that's going to likely cause some volatility. And then for next week, they also are scheduled to announce their Q2 earnings on Tuesday. So Tuesday of next week, I actually have the chart right here. We basically have a very important day. We have NIO's earnings coming out. I do expect a lot of volatility as a result. On top of this, I want to add that for NIO, on Monday, we basically have not really much coming out, very, very minor data. There's not really a whole lot of stuff coming out for Monday, but things do get a lot more serious later on because on Tuesday, that's when we're going to see NIO's earnings and we'll see what they end up telling us. I think their numbers will be very, very important for us moving forward. And then what happens is NIO will give us their guidance. We're going to see what they tell us about the upcoming quarters. Will we see profitability soon? What will deliveries look like for Q3 and Q4? I think this is going to be a very important earnings. Now, I also want to add that as far as other factors go, our data basically suggests that JP Morgan is giving NIO an overweight rating and the price price ratio is still elevated, which is why it still has some strength. And when it comes to our economic data, we got the PCE data. This basically was aligned with expectations. But our Chicago PMI was weak alongside the Michigan consumer sentiment data. That's why the market saw a bit of a sell-off to finish off August. Next week, we have the ISM manufacturing numbers. Then we have some JOLTS numbers on Wednesday. Thursday, we have the ISM services numbers on Thursday. And then Friday is when we have some unemployment numbers. So every day we have big data coming out to start off September. Will this cause volatility? Most likely, yes. I do expect a lot more volatility for September. Greed makes up the majority of sentiment. We'll see if the market bounces a bit before potentially coming back down because historically, you guys can see the white bars are September. September tends to be bearish. The majority of the time, the market comes down during September. So be very, very careful. For NIO, we're going to see what happens with deliveries. If they go well, I'm hoping NIO tries to push for 7. If not, we're going to be looking for some gap fills below. I do want to note that September tends to be volatile, and we do have a lot of gaps to fill in the 7s. So, sorry, not the 7s. Below, we have gaps to fill. That's going to be in the 6s and then 5.5 area. So we do favor downside as a result of that, but we'll see just how things end up going for them. So be very, very careful with NIO. We're going to see what happens with deliveries, then we'll talk about earnings later on. For the SPY charts, I think we might try to bounce a little bit on Monday, but then we have to be careful in case we turn back down because the market could be showing signs of a pivot, especially because of the fact that September is starting. September is known for being a more bearish month. So be very careful. Do look for a small bounce on Monday. Then we'll see if we turn back down. Same thing with the QQQ. We could bounce a little bit, but then we'll see if we turn back down because the reason I'm concerned is because there's a large head and shoulders here. This is like a left shoulder, this is like a head, and then we could be forming like a right shoulder before potentially dipping lower. So be careful with the current setups. The IWM also has support. It's going to likely bounce towards like 237, and we'll see if you reject or not. We could try to go a bit higher, but be careful at 234. We could be dipping afterwards. ES might be bouncing closer to 6,500, then we'll see if it rejects or not off this divergence. Look for a small push on Monday, then we'll see if we turn back down. NQ, however, looks weak. We have a head and shoulders. We'll see if it consolidates between 23,500 and 23,360 before it ends up dumping right back down towards the lower 23,000s. Bitcoin's on a downtrend. We're going to see if we get back above 110,000. If not, we could be dipping lower. Tesla is also looking kind of weak right here. We have a head and shoulders like pattern. We got a very weak close. So Tesla favors consolidation. There may be a dip lower towards 325. Nvidia is also looking weak. We're going to see if we could hold support right here at 171. We're technically range bound on Nvidia, but I do want to note one concern is that the structure on Nvidia looks symmetrical, forming kind of like a triple top like structure. And we're going to see if that basically causes us to dip lower or not. But be careful with Nvidia. Aapl is trying to push. It still looks bullish once again, trying to get back up towards 234. We need to break that to remain bullish. If we don't, we could kind of touch that, then turn back down to 230. Netflix is once again coming back down. We basically have a head and shoulders. We need to hold above 1215. If not, we could be dipping to about 1180. AMD is also rejecting, could be dipping back down to 160. Coinbase might be dipping towards 290, so be careful with this. There is some downside risk. Amazon might be retesting 227.5, and we'll see if that holds. If not, 225 is coming. Meta might be dipping towards 731.5, and we'll see how that goes. Google's trying to push right here all the way back up towards 216. It still looks more bullish. But Microsoft is rejecting here. We're going to see if we hold 507. If not, we could be dipping to like 503. So you want to be very, very careful, at least nonetheless. The VIX is trying to push here. We're going to see if we break out higher or not. I need to see the VIX get back above 16.6. What I think is going to happen is something like this, where we come back down as the market bounces, then slowly continues to uptrend. But then later on into September, I do think we're going to break out and come back up to fill this gap over here. So I do think there's going to be a breakout coming to the VIX, but possibly near like the second half of September, I would say, maybe not this early on. So be prepared for a bit of a dip in the VIX before it tries to break out. That is what could be starting the week off. We might see a small bounce before potentially dipping lower, and NIO might try to push a little bit, but then we're going to see if it starts dipping to fill these gaps or not. There are 1, 2, 3 gaps below, but it also depends on deliveries and their earnings. So be very, very careful. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Have an awesome rest of your guys' days. Enjoy your weekends. In the US, we have Labor Day weekend coming up, which means the stock market is going to be closed for the American markets on Monday. So I won't be uploading much this weekend. I will be back for sure by Monday, though. I'm going to be taking a small break, and I'll see you guys on Monday. I'll give you guys an analysis of NIO then, and then we'll talk about an earnings preview and such. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best. I thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys very, very soon on the next video. Thank you for listening, and peace out.